Thanks for taking the time to meet with me there, Paul. Very excited to learn more. Yeah, to learn more about your business. Um, let's switch over to these first-time home buyer programs. In the last sort of couple of years, have there been any changes to these types of programs? What are you seeing in terms of the trends? Which of the programs do people take the most advantage of? And can foreign buyers, or can they take advantage of them as well?
Great questions. I'll start with the programs that I haven't seen my clients or really most of the community put much value on. Actually, one just got canceled. This was the first time home buyer incentive program. It was a federal program where the government would match your down payment. And there's a lot of stipulations, which is why most people did not qualify for it, sadly enough. And the property had to be under a very ridiculous low amount. But that one got canceled this year, March 2024. And it was for people that did not have enough down payment and wanted to have a match in down payment. So you put down 5%, government matches that. Now, if you watch Dragon's Den or Shark Tank or any equivalent, you'll know that if someone owns equity in your business, they get their 5% back of what you sell at based off the appreciation. So you want to have the government give you a fairly expensive loan, which turns into equity, which turns into less money for you. Most people saw through that. And that's why I think the usage of it was abysmal. So they canned it. And it's a bit of a frustrating one because brokers and even banks got lots of questions around it. And it was not very well communicated, although I'm sure there's the best intentions behind it. And the problem was there's a lot of just questions and people excited about it, like a shiny penny. Then they found they didn't qualify for it or it didn't make sense for them. It just didn't happen. So that was, I think, a big burden on just the system in general. And that is why it didn't get used and why it got canceled. But hey, I think it was a step in the right direction because people need help with down payment and liquidity. So I like the spirit of it. Hopefully we'll see an improved version of that. I think the first-time buyer programs, the ones that, really hit the test of time and recently did get updated in a positive way, was around the exemption to property transfer tax as you buy as a first-time buyer. And the way it went is that, there's a certain amount that would be exempted. It would be all of it or a portion of it. But the catch was the home had to be under $525,000. So, in a city like Vancouver, that becomes unrealistic. They've recently upped that, made 800s if it's a resale and just over $1 million if it's a pre-sale. So there have been improvements. And the general gist there is you're going to save about $8,000 from what it might actually be. So maybe overall you're paying $2,000, $4,000, $6,000. That's the no-brainer. I think that's one that really is significant. $8,000 is a lot. It could be like half people's down payment. So that's one that people are a fan of, and you need to make sure that you do. That's one that's popular. One recently introduced that has got a great reception and it makes financial sense is the first home buyer savings account. So basically you can store up to $40,000 towards your first home, $8,000 per year maximum, up to $5,000 of course, and it can be put into any registered account. And it acts like a blend of an RRSP and TFSA. So let's rewind and let's refresh on what those are, right? So RRSPs, you can put a certain amount of money a year into investments or into anything that grows, and at the end of the year, let's say you put $10,000 into RRSPs. You made $100,000. If you put $10,000 into RRSPs, you can deduct the $10,000 from what you made. So now you're getting taxed from the $90,000 versus the $100,000, which saves a certain amount of taxes. That's a good thing. Obviously, the more you make, the more this can help you. And that is how this FHSA account works. It's the same sort of gist, and you can basically defer taxes. Of course, you have to pay those taxes later on, but you want to defer those when maybe you're making less money, you're retired. Like there's something a financial advisor will walk you through, but that's a high level. TFSA, tax-free savings account, is I think the one that most advisors will say fill that one out before the RSP, because there you are growing your money tax-free. When you take it out, it's all tax-free. So you can put it into NVIDIA stock if you want. And if that shoots up like it has recently, semi-recently, depends on when you're listening to this, that can help, right? But the point is that's how those work. So the FHSA will work in the same way. You can save on taxes like an RRSP, but also I believe the gains are also tax-free. That's pretty amazing and definitely worth tapping into. That's a new one, well received. Took a while to roll out, but it's finally out there. So that's really good. And that's a key one there. And by the way, it's actually important to highlight that the federal government's definition of a first-time buyer versus provincial is different. And this one, FHSA, which is federal, it means that you can be considered a first-time buyer if you have not owned a place for 4 years and have not lived with a spouse that owns a place. So you kind of have this way to refresh yourself as a first-time buyer, which is interesting, and I think opens it up for a lot more people. On the provincial level, at least in BC, it's sort of, that's how I thought it was for both of them is, well, as the name implies, if you have bought a home before, you're not a first-time home buyer, no matter if you sold it and rented or whatever, right? So provincially, they're pretty black or white about it, and so, provincially, you can't get certain benefits under that, right? So going back to the property transfer tax, that definition would apply. If you bought a home in the past, even in another country, and they know about it, can't use it, right? So back to federal, there's a home buyer plan, and that's a good one too, where it's very similar. Well, it ties into what it said about the RRSPs. Is essentially you can pull up to $60,000 per person of your RRSPs towards down payment. You don't get taxed on taking that money out. It's tax deferred. That also got improved this year. That very specific number was $35,000 up until the spring of 2024. So that's got increased. So you can use more on your down payment. That is a good thing. So that's one that is most commonly used. And we talked about the first-time buyer property exemption, property tax exemption, which is great. Another new one, this good thing we covered amortizations, and I didn't mention that. I think I mentioned was if it's below 20% down payment on a property, you must do 25-year amortizations, and you also pay something called mortgage default insurance with CMHC. Funny enough, you're paying for insurance for the lender in case you default. It's not even insurance for you. They force you to do it, right? And that ends up being, that insurance is actually about $20,000 across a 25-year period, for example. If you don't pay it all up front, it ends up being like $40 a month for 360 months, right? But still, that's the thing you want to avoid if you can. Another angle on why 20% is very important. On that tangent, you buy a rental property, it must be 20%. So owner occupied is sort of the way to go as low as 5%. And anyways, so that's the rules, right? Amortizations cannot be over 25 years on under 20%, etc. Now, if you're a first-time buyer, right, and you are under 20% and you are buying a pre-sale, they will let you do 30-year amortizations, which gives you relief on monthly payments and gives you all the benefits without having to do 20%. Only for first-time buyers and only for pre-sales. These are, new construction. So that's when they got rolled out. People seem to be, appreciative, but it's still pretty niche. So hard to say how effective that will be over time for the general population. What I learned about recently, actually, is the first-time home buyers tax credit. Basically, low-hanging fruit, and you can save $1,500 in actual tax money up to that. And you can just Google it and look at how it works, but it's pretty simple for your accountant to implement. Every dollar counts, right? Especially with the amount of people we see are emptying their bank accounts just for down payment and closing costs. So that's something to consider.
Right. That's a great way to finish. I like that.